Well, hello, everybody. Welcome once again to a great episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. I am Bob Van Buren, your host. Very glad you're here. To those of you that tune in week after week, I couldn't be more humbled and more honored. Glad that you stick with us and hoping you're learning a few things or two like I am with an individual guest with a different topic every week. For those of you that are just tuning in for the first time to this show, welcome aboard. Glad you're here. Just a little more history about the show. It is called Van Buren Variety, and it's just that, a variety show. Every week, I have an individual guest here to talk about an interesting topic. It could be the person's profession. It might be a hobby. It might be a how-to segment. Maybe even some musical entertainment coming up. So if you're new here, or if you just have tuned in several times and you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. You hit that subscribe button, and you will get alerts on future guests and future topics. So hit that subscribe button. It ain't hard. And if you like the episode tonight and the guest that I'm going to have on, make sure you hit that like button too, because our guests like to know, get the feedback that people are watching. And if you have any questions, make sure, if you haven't seen this live, if you're seeing it much days, weeks, or months later, leave a comment. If you have a question, and I'll make sure that our guest sees that. So again, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show, episode 68. Wow, it doesn't seem like I've done 68 episodes. It's been a fun ride. I am eternally grateful to all of the guests that have been on the show and will be on the show. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, those of you that have appeared and will appear. So I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you very much. Have a great show for you tonight, but let me kind of tell you something that I've been kind of researching lately. Now, those of you that are under 40 years old will have no idea what I'm talking about here. Let's go back to days before cable television. I know that's hard to do. The days before video rental stores. There was a technology that had just come to pass, and what it was subscription channels that would be broadcast over the air on a UHF channel. They would scramble their signal at night where they would show sports, first run movies, specials, etc. But not many people remember these channels, and I would love to talk to someone who either subscribed to one of these channels or even worked for one of these companies. Now, these companies are long gone. Cable TV, satellite TV buried these companies a long time ago, along with the Blockbuster Videos of the world. But I remember these channels because they would scramble at night on a free television station. The only way you could see the picture is to subscribe, have a decoder box sitting on your TV. So real briefly, before I bring my guest on, these are the channels that I found that did that. There was on TV subscription television. There was Preview. And then there was View. Again, the channel on UHF might show free television all day long. But in the evening, they would scramble their picture where you could see first-run movies. And back then, that was a big thing. There was no cable television. There was no video stores. To be able to see a movie in your home, unedited, no commercials, that was the thing. And so I just thought, man, is that how far we've come? You know, on TV, Preview, View, and I'm sure there's more. But I'm very interested in that. I don't know how they scrambled their signal. I mean, took a lot better, smarter people than me. So, so if you know anything about those channels, I'd love to hear about it because it's been 40 years now. But I don't know how all over the country they were, but I think they were quite popular in their days. So, anyway, that's my little hobby. I've been researching those channels. So if you could tell me anything more, I'd appreciate it. But tonight, though, we're not talking about television. We've got a much, much, much more interesting topic to talk about. And I'll just ask you each individual a question that are watching this. Have you ever heard the name, which I'm sure you have, the name McAuliffe? If you're like me, that rings a bell. You know you've heard it. Maybe you can't place it. Well, that name is very, very popular. And not only is it a popular name, it's a historic name. And we're going to be talking about to a McAuliffe that's going to tell us a little history of the name and all the famous people and all the interesting people that have that name. And he's written several books, which we'll also talk about. So without further ado, I will bring my guest on tonight. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey there.
Hello. Welcome.
How's it going? How's it going? Thank you so much.
This is Tom McAuliffe, ladies and gentlemen, and he'll be talking about not only the McAuliffe name, he's written some very interesting books now, and he's got some coming in the future that we're going to talk about. So,
And
Tom, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
there's a guy out in Clean, Texas right now saying, yeah, I remember the McAuliffes. I saw him at the post office. There was a picture like this and a picture straight on, right on the wall. I saw him. Yeah, the McAuliffes, we're a crazy family. We got some crazy people to talk about tonight. First, of course, is Mr. Mulligan. My grandfather got a new book out. It's on Amazon Kindle, and we've got the new audiobook coming out on the 13th. We'll talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
He was a armless golfer, which is kind of crazy. He lost both of his arms in a tragic streetcar accident when he was 9 years old.
9 years old. Oh,
when he was 9 years old, and taught himself how to play par golf and live a successful life. Played with all the greats, Bobby Jones, Walter Hagen, Arnold Palmer. And then in the later part of his life, really got involved in politics and passing laws to protect the handicapped, as well as giving positive thinking talks around the country. Yep. And so we'll talk a little bit about that, and then some of my other books.
Absolutely.
We've got a new one coming out in August. But it's interesting because the McAuliffes just had our first clan rally in about 10 years in where we're from, in Ireland, in Newmarket, County Cork, Ireland.
Ireland,
Ireland, don't you know, boy? Yes, we got some Guinness over there.
Perfect.
And of course, the McAuliffe clan used to own most of the county of Cork, about 80,000 acres, had 4 castles there.
Wow.
And a branch of the family from Australia came and bought an old cathedral in Newmarket and rehabbed it. Beautiful stained glass windows. You should see it.
Wow.
It's called the McAuliffe Heritage Center. And it's fabulous. And so they've elected a new chief of the clan. And I wasn't able to go this time, but I'm going to go in 2024, which is the next one. And I'll tell you a quick story. So,
please,
I go over there to, research my history and look for my roots and all that stuff.
That's important.
And the old McAuliffe homestead is now owned by the O'Brien family. And so I'm a gregarious kind of guy. So I go up to the door, knock, and talk to the guy. And Brian O'Brien says, yeah, I'll take you out tomorrow and I'll show you the site of Castle McAuliffe. And you can camp right here. So you let us camp on under the tree and stuff. And I'm going to sleep by the campfire, and I'm have visions of National Geographic castles with drawbridges and things. So we get up about 6-7 o'clock the next morning, and we go hiking. And we go hiking through these thickets, these stickers that were chest high. He's out there with the machete, and we go on for, it seemed like an hour, 90 minutes anyway.
Whew.
We finally come to a clearing, and in the clearing is a huge pile of rocks. And he turns to me without batting an eye and says with a straight face, but you should have seen her 400 years ago. She was really something to see. I smacked. But so we all come from County Cork, and like you say, we've had some really famous ones. I'm working on a book right now called Nuts. It's about General Tony McAuliffe in World War II, the Battle of the Bulge.
I'll bring that up.
The city of Bastogne, Belgium, surrounded by the new German Panzer tank.
Oh wow!
Big, huge Mercedes-Benz engine, huge, more armor than ours had, twice as much as armors as our tanks had. They surrounded the city of Bastogne, leaving about 500 guys and Tony McAuliffe, the 101st Screaming Eagles, in Bastogne. And the Germans sent a contingent to the general and said, surrender or we're going to level the town. And it was a beautiful 17th century town with a lot of old cathedrals.
Sure, yeah. History,
exactly, historic.
Mm-hmm.
And the general said, nuts. And
Good answer.
and it took the Germans 3 days to figure out what nuts meant. And during those 3 days, and during
like
those
that.
and during those 3 days, George Patton and the Third Army broke through and saved the town. So,
Wow.
but he was, and that's the common story that we talk about with nuts and Bastogne. But my research has shown is this guy was on the bleeding edge of changes in the United States Army every step of the way. It's almost like he was the Forrest Gump of the Army, because every time you turn around, he was involved there. For example, one of the first things he did was switch the kind of anti-aircraft guns that our things did. Why? Because it saved the taxpayer money and was more effective, and went up against Churchill about that.
Really?
Yes, he was involved in inventing the bazooka. He was involved in inventing a thing called the Duck, which was an amphibious vehicle that, without which they would not have been able to move the 10 million pounds of armament and supplies across Omaha Beach during the first 30 days after D-Day.
He was a busy guy.
They wouldn't have been able to do that.
Wow.
And more basic things, like he helped redesign the M1 helmet and make it more ventilation and such like that. So he was involved in all that. Then we go on, come to find out, he was very involved in the integration of the Army.
Really?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. When Truman gave the presidential order of 98, I think that was it.
Yes.
He was involved in implementation, and for him, it wasn't a moral thing or anything. It had strictly to do with military readiness. Yeah,
sure.
And we go on, and he come to find out he was involved in testing the first atomic bomb.
Really?
First atomic bomb.
He was involved.
Man, oh man, served 37 years, and then did a wonderful career with a major corporation here in the United States. Had 3 beautiful children, and
That's awesome.
was quite a character. Had a wicked sense of humor. Was a Christian gentleman. Never really swore. You had Patton saying SOB this and F that.
Oh yeah, that was
on
all
his
out.
side. And then Tony McAuliffe, General McAuliffe, was on the totally opposite side. And they truly, the more research I do, they truly were the greatest generation.
I agree with that.
And
I do.
And had the Germans had the Nazis had another 50,000, 100,000 gallons of petrol, they would have gotten to Antwerp, captured the Allied dumps, the ammo dump and fuel dump there, as well as the port, and it
Disaster.
Would have been a totally different situation. And Hitler, of course, had already conquered that whole area in 1940. Had wonderful results and victorious results back in 1940. So we got Nuts, the life and time of
I'm gonna bring that up again.
of General Tony McAuliffe, and that'll be coming out in August. We'll do a print book. All the books will be print books, audio books, and ebooks. And as I was saying earlier when we were off backstage, I read a report. I think it came out from either Duke University down in Texas Way or Stanford in California. It said this year, for the first time, more books will be sold that are ebooks and audiobooks than regular print books. Now, I don't know if that's such a good thing or not, but
I'm an old-fashioned guy.
Me too. But I was in B. Dalton the other day, and I saw this little 6-year-old girl, and she was pointing to a big, huge pile of books, and she said, "Mommy, what are those?"
Oh no! I believe it though.
See the kid. He's got the book, and he's trying to start it. He keeps trying to push the button to see if the screen will come up.
Take off the screensaver, yeah.
But different strokes. At least they're reading.
Bad girl, I like that.
And of course, you can't read while you're going down the road at 70 miles an hour, so it's all good.
That's true.
Independent, there's good news and bad news about independent publishing. The good news is that anybody can produce a book today. The bad news, anybody can produce a book today.
That's it. There's a lot of authors, a lot of self-publishing going on out
And
there.
a lot of fly-by-night companies out there. I think the virus was kind of a good thing because a lot of people that were stuck
Mm-hmm.
inside tackled a lot of these projects that they had. I've been a magazine editor and writer for over 30 years.
Oh, really?
Yep. Used to be the editor-in-chief of Government Video Magazine and wrote for Videography and Video Maker magazines and such like that. And had always wanted to write a book. And I got tired of waiting for Simon and Schuster to give me a call. And so I decided to do it myself. And
Be your own boss. Yeah.
the book, Mr. Mulligan, The Life of Champion Armless Golfer Tommy McAuliffe, has only been out a month and a half, and we've already won 4 awards. We've won 4
That's
awards,
awesome.
and the sales reports are coming in, and people have really warmed up to it. And we even have a company that's called Roadside Attractions that has approached us about talking about maybe making it into a motion picture.
Oh, I would love that.
Wouldn't
If
that
they
be
could do
something?
that.
I love golf movies. There's a wonderful, in fact, I just thought of it. There's a wonderful golf movie that happens down in Texas. It's set in Texas. It's got
Mhm.
Robert Duvall and another wonderful young actor that I can't remember of, but it's called 7 Days in Utopia.
I have not seen that yet. Mm-hmm.
Utopia, Texas, and it's called 7 Days in Utopia, and it's about a young golfer and him coming to terms with life and like that. So that's kind of the new thing. We've got the audio book of Mr. Mulligan coming out, and then nuts. I'm just I gotta get busy, man. I'm on fire.
You got a lot on your plate.
I turned 65 on St. Patty's Day.
Happy birthday!
And so I got to get these stories out, man. And then coming on, you mentioned earlier off stage, we've got Throttle Up. Krista McAuliffe, the first teacher astronaut who died in Space Shuttle Challenger.
Let me bring those pictures up about your books coming up.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
that's the middle book on the bottom left, correct?
It is. It
okay.
is. And I think we're going to move up the release date of that, and that's going to come out this fall before the other two. She was a remarkable young lady in so many different ways, and lives on in an organization called the Challenger Foundation, which we are a little bit involved with. They bring astronauts and people who are involved with NASA into these elementary schools at 4th, 5th, 6th grade.
Oh, great.
And get these kids fired up about math and science, and maybe working in space.
Let me kind of refresh my audience's memory. Ladies and gentlemen, if y'all remember Christina McAuliffe, she was the school teacher that was aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger in January of '86 that unfortunately perished with the rest of the crew that day. So, and Tom's written a book about her. Look on the bottom left of your screen, the middle book. Go ahead, Tom, to go tell us more about the book.
Yeah, well, she was, like, as I say, a remarkable individual. She was the first civilian in space. And some other books have been written about it, but we come to find that Morton Thiokol and indeed the Reagan administration had go fever. And the shuttle had frozen the night before. It had gone down to 28 degrees. I was on the radio in Orlando at the time. Was an on-air personality with Z93, and it was a really sad situation. President Reagan wanted to speak to the shuttle during the State of the Union, which would have happened 4 days later, and they got go fever, but she lives on, like I say, in the Challenger
she does.
Foundation, and certainly made an impetus to do a lot of changes in the shuttle. The shuttle was an amazing piece of machinery, and I think it was a real tragedy that America let it go, and then had to pay the Russians for what I believe it's over $5 million a ticket,
something like that. Yeah.
For 15 years. We're only now coming in to being able to use private. That's kind of interesting. I love the SpaceX stuff with where the rocket actually comes down vertically, and
Mhm.
That's just amazing stuff. So Throttle Up, the life of astronaut Krista McAuliffe, will be
When's that
coming
coming
out.
out, do you think?
That'll be coming out this fall.
Coming fall. Okay. We'll be looking
I'm
for it.
I'm only one person, and I'm typing as fast as I can.
You can't do Siri speaking to the microphone, you know?
That's interesting you mentioned that, because I'm starting to fool around with
Just kidding.
with dictation. A
Oh, are
lot of
you? Okay.
independent authors now, in order to increase their page count, instead of just hammering on the keys, um, they now are using a microphone, and they do dictation, and then it automatically shows up on the screen. I don't totally understand it, but
Yeah, that's people smarter than me.
you get the idea.
Yep.
And that just kind of goes back to Grandpa Tommy, who basically, we also found in the papers a manuscript of about 25,000 words written in 1937 to 1939, called No Handicaps. And he wrote it like this.
Oh, wow, with his mouth.
One pencil, number 2 pencil in his mouth, and via one key at a time, 25,000 words. It's called No Handicaps. I edited it. I put it together. As I added some of the pictures. We mixed it with a whole bunch of love, and it's out now as an ebook. It's called No Handicaps, and together with Mr. Mulligan's available on Amazon and Kindle. And it really was the forerunner, a very tough love. But he honestly believed and in fact felt that he had proven that the only handicap in life was a mental one. And
That's true.
And that most people are as happy as they make up their minds to be, and that other people are going to think about you what you think about you. And I will submit to you that his accomplishments were right up there with, Helen Keller, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. He met Dr. James Allen, who wrote a book in 1927 called As a Man Thinketh. Other people are going to think about you what you think about you. And if you think you can't, let me tell you just one quick story that Grandpa Tommy told me.
Okay.
So he would always go to veterans centers and veterans hospitals, as well as children's hospitals, but veterans. He had a very close place in his heart for veterans, and always was disappointed that he couldn't defend the country. He would have joined the Army if he could, but without 2 arms, it's a little bit difficult to shoot people.
Yeah.
So he, I forgot what I was talking about. I'm sorry.
Not him being just disabled, not letting anything get in his way. It's kind of where you were headed with that, I thought.
So basically, he typed this out, 25,000 words. I edited it. It's more of a technical manual about overcoming your handicaps and learning to live successfully with your disability. A lot of people would tell you that when he first started, they would say that he was a freak, that he was going to wind up selling pencils on the corner. He would say that when they, I remember now. Sorry about that.
No problem.
I'm a child of the 60s. What can I tell you? So he would tell this story. So he went to this veterans hospital, and this staff sergeant, called him over and told him this story. It seems that in World War II, this guy had gotten separated from his unit. And this was like in the border of northern Italy, Austria, Germany, up in there. And he jumped on a freight train that was going past. He had to get out of the area. There was German patrols and such like that. Jumped on the train that was going past, and it was kind of a new-looking train. It had a lot of swastikas on it and shit. So he jumped on there and said, well, they'll never look for me here. So, he jumped on there. And as the train went along, it, started hitting some bumps. And sure enough, the train door closed and locked.
Oh.
And then he looked around and he figured, wait a second. This is a refrigeration car. This is one of the new German refrigeration cars that they're using to move meat back and forth from the front. And I'm going to freeze to death in here.
Oh, no.
So he finds a piece of chalk and he writes out an epitaph to his family. Separated from unit, locked in here. Surely I'm going to freeze to death. Tell my wife and family I love them. Train pulls into the station the next morning. In the overnight, the Allies had secured the station, and the Allied troops started opening up the cars one by one. And sure enough, they found him, frozen to death. There was only one problem. When they looked over the car, they realized that the refrigeration unit was defective, and the car never reached more than 40 degrees.
Oh, really? Wow.
It was his mind that had
He thought he was going to freeze to death.
He thought he was going to freeze to death, and guess what? He did.
He froze all up here.
Most people, like I say, the only handicap in life is a mental one. And he believed in successive repetition. The reason why he was able to tuck a golf club up underneath his shoulder and chin and hit a golf ball off my dad's face,
wow,
was sheer concentration. In fact, you can look at the back there. That's a wonderful picture of him in both cases. And he wouldn't, the thing about him was he had a perfect epitome of the full body swing, what they call the full bodied swing, by necessity.
That's what I was going to ask you. My question was, how did your grandfather learn how to play golf with no arms?
Well, successive repetition towards perfection. And started with a 7-iron that he had found in the trash, and just basically did it over and over and over and over again.
That is amazing. That's an amazing story.
And we have now video footage of my dad lying down on the ground with a golf tee in his mouth, and Grandpa Tommy shooting golf balls off. And he not real long on the fairway, but always straight. And a golfer will tell you that that's a big thing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've got a little bit of a slice myself, and it's really a curse. And that was there was 3 things that led me to get off my Irish duff and actually write these books. And the first one is, we found in an attic long ago, or stuff that was forgotten long ago, a chest that had old clippings and photographs and the manuscript that he had written, one letter at a time.
Oh wow, history.
We freaked out. It was amazing. And then number 2, I had my first heart attack. So I started looking back at the men who had an effect in my life and had been part of my life. And then third, I think was the technology is there now, so that
absolutely
you can do a major book. Like I say, it's already gotten 4 awards, and God's blessing us more than we deserve. And so we'll see if we can't we'll see if we can't do some more. But he was truly an amazing man.
Absolutely.
As are the other family members. The 2 I haven't talked about yet is Detroit Tiger Dick McAuliffe, who was called Mad Dog, and it's called Mad Dog. And that'll be out probably just in time for the World Series. That's over there.
I see it. Yeah, in the lower left-hand corner, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. That's him in the World Series playoffs, where he I want to say game 5, and he got the guy out at second plate, but busted up his collarbone.
What year frame? What time frame was this?
This is 1968.
1968. Okay.
So let me kind of give you an overview. Riots are happening in the city of Detroit, and the announcer comes on, and that 3-block area at Michigan and Trumbull in downtown Detroit was hallowed ground and neutral territory. If you could get there through the riots and through the fires and stuff that was happening, people would leave you alone. You could park your car, not a problem. But it was crazy. My Uncle Johnny was a Detroit firefighter. Most of my family are Detroit
Oh,
firefighters.
wow.
Used to tell me the story of he used to have the fire hose in one hand and a submachine gun in the other to protect his crew.
Wow. Oh.
So it's the fourth game of the World Series, and the announcer comes on and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, RCA recording artist Jose Feliciano," and we start to hear the Star Spangled Banner in this Spanish flamenco guitar type way. And everybody looks to the home plate. Where is he? Well, you don't see him. Where the heck is he? And you look out in left field. How appropriate! You look out in left field, and there's little Jose sitting on a little stool, singing the national anthem. And
wow.
and the book talks about Dick McAuliffe, my cousin, switching from shortstop to second base, the ins and outs of baseball and the business of baseball. He had some challenges with reading when he was a kid and overcame them, and some substance abuse problems later on, a little gambling problem. He was on the same team as Denny McLean, who won 30 games that year and got into a little bit of trouble and went to prison later in his life. And the 68 Detroit Tigers was just an amazing team. I was very young then, but then again, we went to 1984, which is another thing with Sparky Anderson. But I'm also looking down the road to a book called Plum Street, which is about Detroit in 1968 and about the music scene there and the hippies and all that kind of stuff. And that'll be my first semi-fiction book.
That sounds interesting.
These are all biographies and such, and they're interesting people. But I'm kind of, interested in spreading my wings a little bit. But so that's Mad Dog about Dick McAuliffe and the Detroit Tigers in 1968.
That sounds interesting.
Won the World Series in 6 games, and then lastly, the Life and Times. It's called Life of the Party, and it's about Virginia governor and former Democratic National Committee Chairman Terry McAuliffe.
I'll bring that up. That's lower left-hand corner, more left center, I guess you could say, in the bottom. The name of it's what again? What's the name of the book?
Called Life of the Party.
Okay, Life of the Party, ladies and gentlemen. Okay.
And he almost ran for president this last time around. Loves the state of Virginia, so decided not to run. But he has a very interesting story to tell, and is very influential. He was the DNC chair under the Clinton administration. And was elected, I want to say, twice, maybe 3 times in the state of Virginia. So we're going to talk. We're going to talk a little bit about the Democratic Party, about politics today, and about his life so far. It's not over yet. Yeah.
Sounds very interesting. Oh, wow. Well, do you have, this might be kind of a hard question for you. We got all these, great McAuliffes in history, and they made their mark in our lives. Do you personally have a favorite, maybe I won't say I'm a favorite McAuliffe, but a favorite McAuliffe story? Can you think of any that maybe just pop in your mind?
Well, I think, the story of Nuts is so classic. You could just see a burned out hovel of a command post, and then the German running in and saying, "Surrender will level the town," and Nuts.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a great comeback.
It's a great line. And there was another one. What was I wanted to say? Where was, hang on one second. Let me just pull this up, because there was another quote. I've got some interviews that he did back in 1963. And, and there is a quote that I've found. Here it is.
Who said this now?
This is Tony McAuliffe, General Tony McAuliffe.
Tony McAuliffe. Okay.
He said, "Men, we've been given the greatest opportunity in military history. We are surrounded and can attack in any direction."
In any direction, yeah.
any directions, because they had surrounded the town. 2 other stories that we talk about as little sidebars within Nuts, and one is about Corporal Burgess, who was a tank commander,
Mm-hmm.
A real brief story. Um, got out of the tank to go to the bathroom. It had been so cold; it was coldest there in 100 years. Like -7. The soldiers had to pee on their guns in order to get them to work. That's how cold it was. The tank oil would freeze, so they had to keep the
Mm.
tanks running all the time. Um, and so he tells a story that he got out of the tank to get a little -7 degree fresh air, and was relieving himself. And in the background, he could see a squad, 7 guys, patrol from the 101st, going by near the tank. And over on the other side, he looked over there, and all of a sudden, 4 Germans popped up out of a foxhole where they had taken
Oh.
pine straw and pine
Oh.
branches over, and they were obviously resting up there before they were going to try and give the tank some business. Um, and those 4
Mm.
popped up, and he said that the patrol and the Germans froze for almost like 40 seconds, 30, 40 seconds, just like,
What do we do?
and then
Yeah.
they both opened up on each other, and Americans lost 3, Germans lost
Mm.
2, and he jumped into his tank and went off. And then the other inspiring story that we found is one that's a lot lesser known. The Germans captured the hospital, the aid station,
Oh,
lock, stock,
wow.
and barrel. Took all the nurses, the doctors, put them as prisoners of war,
Mm.
all the medical
Mm.
supplies, everything. Um, and So this doctor, Pryor, establishes an aid station. Out of nowhere, these 2 local women show up, um, Augusta Chewy and Renee Lemaire. And for the next week, prior to Christmas, they do what they can for the Allied soldiers. They had basically cognac and French wine as anesthesia.
You got to
Um,
make do with what you got, you know.
and
Mm-hmm.
It was truly horrific
Mm.
in the basement of a local store on Main Street there. Um,
Mm.
and So she would Lemaire, beautiful young woman, um, would collect Allied parachutes because they were made out of silk, so that she would be able to sew a wedding dress after the war. And everybody by this time, the war had gone on for 4 years, and everybody
Mm-hmm.
was
For sure.
really, really tired.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Christmas Eve, a 500-pound Nazi bomb fell on top of the aid station, killing her and 30 other individuals. And when they found her body 2 days later, in her hand was clutched a piece of white silk from an American parachute. And they
Mm.
wrapped her body in an American parachute and took it to her parents. But they were called the Angels of Bastogne. And and then the next day after she was killed, um, and they say that General McAuliffe, when he heard the full story, actually cried. And it took the whole neighborhood there in Bastogne, um, uh, months to overcome that. She was a
Mm-hmm.
local treasure, had worked in the
I'm
hospital,
sure. Mm-hmm.
before the war. And then the next day, Patton, and they did. And one of the things that they'll tell you is that they don't like the idea that Patton says he came and rescued the town. General McAuliffe would tell you that I didn't need no rescuing. The 101st Screaming Eagles of the United States Army didn't need any rescuing. The 10th Armored Division didn't need any rescuing, but we appreciate the help. We appreciate you showing up, but we would have been
Mm-hmm.
just fine.
Sure.
I really appreciate you having me on the show, and that's kind of what we got going on. And uh, what else can I tell you? Did you have
Well,
some questions about the book, maybe?
I do, yeah, but let's kind of, and I know our audience is watching this live, and those that are watching this, in recording, are very interested. So, what would you say? Someone wants to buy one of your books, Tom. Where would you suggest they go? What's the
Well,
best way to get them?
well, we're in the process of setting up a retail website there at www.author Tom McAuliffe,
I'll bring that up. Is this it?
MCAULI. Yep. And but they can go to Amazon, they can go to Kindle, Book Baby, the book shop at bookbaby.com. It's available there. And of course your local independent bookstore, which is really, by the way, really important. We need to support local independent businesses, or we're not going to have any, and
Absolutely.
it's all going to be big box stores. So if you can, go to your local bookstore. They might need to order it. Might take a couple days.
Or your website.
But yeah, and like I say, the audiobook's coming out if you prefer to consume that way, or an ebook if you got a Kindle reader, that'll be available as well. So that's how you can get the book. And if you go to my website and sign up for my e-newsletter, we'll be giving you discounts and some special short stories and some things like that, some things to keep me off the street and keep me busy.
Folks, make sure you do that. Go to his website right now, sign up, and you get some discounts. And we have a comment actually from the audience, Tom. Randy here, who was in the Army as well, says he remembers the story of General McAuliffe. So,
Yeah.
all right. He's a legend.
He really is. And I've been to Bastogne a couple of times. It is the second most visited World War II site in Europe, next to the beaches of Normandy. And
wow.
there's a McAuliffe Square there with a bust of General McAuliffe and a Sherman tank with a 88 caliber hole in the side of it. The 88 caliber guns that the Nazis had were just brutal.
Oh, I'm sure.
The guys, Burgess in the sidebar says that it was like getting a body block in hockey, that it would just boom hit your chest when it would go off and such like that. And it's interesting. We were talking a little bit about it before. They truly were the greatest generation. They truly were. And I wonder, when a recent, I don't want to get on my soapbox here for a second, but as long as I'm here, let me climb up here.
Let's do it.
When a recent USA Today poll said that 36% of those polled said that they would not come to the defense of this country if the Russians landed on the shore. 36%
of Americans said they would not defend this country.
I got a problem with that. I even wonder.
That's horrible.
We know the story of what is it? American Airlines 11 on 9/11.
Flight 11, yes.
Where the group in the back of the cabin got together, 5 or 6 of them, and put their lives on the line.
Well, that was United 93.
Okay.
United Airlines 93.
Rushed the cabin and stuff like that. I truly wonder, my friend, if we could get 7 individuals to do that today. I don't know that we could. I think that we
kind of iffy. Yeah.
I think that we really missed a big opportunity with 9/11. And I fear that something bad's going to happen again. And
all we can do is pray that it doesn't.
I want us to get back to being able to talk about policy instead of each other's mothers. America has we have a lot of, big time problems.
We do.
And the sad part about it is while we're talking about, wherever you land on the political spectrum, and we're gotten off on a side topic here, but wherever you land, you got to admit that the old way was better. I mean, we're going to basically just talk about all these social issues and stuff like that.
Sure.
It's a crazy, crazy time, and I hope we find our way back to being able, because I feel like Ronald Reagan. I didn't leave the party left me.
Exactly. I've heard him say that many times.
and I have voted, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, but I have on occasion voted for a Republican candidate because I thought they'd do a better job. And like we talked about before, the founding fathers never intended it to be a profession. You were supposed to go and serve your fellow man, serve your fellow citizens, and then go back to being a blacksmith or whatever it is you did.
Should not be a career politician.
We got guys up there that have been there 40 years. Go get it. And my message to them is go get a job.
Let me bring your books back up again. And here's the other question. How are all these people related to you, or should I say connected to you in somehow?
Well, of course,
Because they're all McAuliffes, right?
Tommy McAuliffe is my grandfather.
That's from the
Mr.
nuts, from the.
Mr.
Okay.
Mulligan.
Okay.
General Tony McAuliffe is a distant cousin. Dick McAuliffe is a direct cousin. He's my second cousin.
Okay.
Krista McAuliffe, her husband Steve, is our relative, as is Governor McAuliffe. But we all trace our lineage back to, like we talked about before, Clan Ollie and 1660 in Newmarket or in County Cork, Ireland.
Wow. So
It's
McAuliffes go way back.
kind
Wow.
of kind of amazing. And there's other ones that I wasn't even able to include in this 5-book series. There's Jack McAuliffe, who was a heavyweight champion of the world guy.
Wow.
There's some other guys that are today. There's Patrick McAuliffe, who was a special effects artist on Star Trek Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fun, and I encourage people to go and look up your roots. Ancestry.com is a wonderful resource, but you can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been.
Exactly.
And you might be surprised who you're related to, and such like that. And I just recently got my DNA tested, and we found out that we were almost full-blooded Irish with a little bit of Scotch and a little bit of German. And kind of cool.
Yeah, all the principal people that you've written about in the McAuliffes are very, very interesting. But I have to say, this one here is a very much as a model, a role model for me. Because sometimes I'm pretty much optimistic all the time, but there's that pessimistic, that little voice I think that we all have says you can't do it, you're not good enough, blah blah
Amen.
blah. And when I see this picture of this book right here on the left, here is a guy with no arms, yet can play. And I say can, C-A-N. He can play golf just as the best of them. I mean, that should be an example for everybody.
And
That you shouldn't let anything hinder your dreams. I mean, look at this guy. He has no arms, and he's playing golf.
And notice a couple other things about that picture.
Okay.
The two-tone shoes.
Yes.
The thin and thick socks. The tweed, half pants there, and wearing a tie. He was always impeccably dressed.
He was, yeah.
If he would play golf, it would be a bright white cotton shirt and knickers like that. And wearing a tie while you're playing 18 holes of golf is kind of foreign to me. But he would always. The other thing that was kind of interesting is somebody was calling him Steam Train Tommy, and we always wondered why that was. We found out that it was because he would smoke Lucky Strike cigarettes, and as he was walking down the fairway, there would be this big cloud of smoke above him, and he kind of looked like a train. So they call him Train Tommy, Steam Train Tommy. And the other thing that was kind of fascinating is they used to have like golf exhibitions at night under lights, as you see on the back cover there.
I see that. Yeah, it's at nighttime.
And these were almost like rock concerts.
Wow.
I mean, you'd get Walter Hagen and Bobby Jones and those kind of guys, and they would do. His show was the Lucky 13 Golf Shot Show, and he would do things like, for example, he did a thing called a 9-ball stymie, and basically what you do is you line up 9 balls about 6 to 12 inches apart, away from the hole, and the golfer comes and putts the balls into the hole without missing.
Wow.
He played about 250 golf courses in America, Canada, and Australia over the course of 1 year.
That's awesome.
Was on the radio and television on a regular basis. Established a magazine back in 1935 called The Crutch and Cane, the Crutch and Cane magazine. And that had up to, in its heyday, had 35,000 subscribers and was published for 25 years and stopped in 1955. But he was a magazine publisher. And then, of course, was the golf editor for the Buffalo News and covered the U.S. Open and like that. Golf
Right.
really was. People don't really realize that in the 30s, golf really was. Oh, it's kind of like tennis is today.
Mm-hmm.
It was big money, big names, big tournaments, big exhibitions, and it was certainly golf's golden days. That's for sure.
When I see him wearing those knickers, I can't help but think more modern. For a while, golfer Payne Stewart kind of brought those back for a little while when he was
That's
playing.
right.
It's like almost like a throwback in a way. So,
And we are in the process too of trying to get Tommy McAuliffe into the PGA Hall of Fame because
that would be great.
he actually played one round in professional golf with Arnold Palmer in, I want to say, 1973, the Motor City Open.
Oh wow.
And so we'll see what happens with that. And of course, golf is in a big upheaval right now with the new LIV
Yeah, sure.
tournament
Mm-hmm.
and everything like that. So um, the PGA has been good for golf, and golf's been good for PGA. Uh,
Absolutely.
uh, I kind of wonder where the money comes from in this new tournament, this new
Yeah,
association.
not
Um,
sure.
but they certainly got the attention, and everybody's talking about it. You know, I was at the Masters in Georgia back in April,
Mm-hmm.
and got a chance to give a copy of the book to Jack Nicklaus, who was there, the Golden Bear, and he's 82 years old and still
Oh wow,
and still hitting it.
man, oh man.
Still out there on the greens hitting it. He looked great. Um, had that yellow California sweater. But he was there. I want to say Payne Stewart was there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Tiger
Yeah,
played.
sure, of course. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so that was fascinating. The thing about Mr. Mulligan is that it's not a book about golf or how to play golf.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about the principles and the etiquette and the principles that Tommy learned through golf that he was able to apply to his life later on in adulthood, as well as helping him to have focus and overcome his handicap.
Let me ask I've got a question about him too. What was the number one thing that played a role in his rehabilitation? Was there anything special?
He got mad. He
He
got
got
mad.
mad.
He said, "How dare they think I can't compete with them because I got no arms? My brain wasn't amputated.
Yeah.
Uh, I've still got two good legs and a good brain, and I can make a contribution and live a happy and successful life." And he was not about to take no for an answer. And
Good for him.
I will say this too: he was very demanding of himself, and consequently, those around him, his family members. My dad had a real problem living up to who could live up to the reputation of Tommy McAuliffe.
Oh,
And
sure.
my dad developed alcoholism later on in life. He used to say he drove the back of the hook and ladder. I said, "Dad, why do you drink?" He said, "If you drove the back of the hook and ladder on black ice at 3 o'clock in the morning, you would drink too." Um, and So I just have been real honored to be his namesake
Absolutely.
over the years, and I'm
Hmm.
just so gratified at the response on the book. If you get a chance, stop by authortommccauliffe.com or Amazon or Kindle and give it a read or give it a review. I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, you have to, buy some of these books. The McAuliffe name. There's so many famous, people out there that he's written about. Not just the golfer, but there's an astronaut, a Detroit baseball player, a four-star general, a governor of Virginia. So there's just so many interesting
Something
characters.
something for everyone. Exactly.
Exactly.
So this will be a whole series. We'll put together the 5-book series in time for Christmas, so
Okay.
people could maybe buy that for Christmas
I'm gonna put the website back up
or
again,
get that. And then I want to just tell you, just too,
please.
I'm going to be coming down your way. I'm real excited. I'm going to be coming down your way to the Texas Book Fair. That's November 5th and 6th in Austin.
November
And
5th and 6th of
and
this year in Austin. Okay.
it has just it's fairly new as book fairs go. It's got started, I want to say, in the mid to late '90s, but it has really grown to the fact where there's 50,000 people that show up, and 250 authors.
Wow. Oh, wow.
It'll be in Austin, like I say, on November 5th and 6th, and I look forward to being there in some capacity. We'll probably have a booth or a table, or you
Okay.
could stop by and throw darts at me or something.
What's the name of the event again in Austin?
That's the Texas Book Festival
Texas Book Festival, ladies and
in
gentlemen. If you're interested,
in Austin. You can look them up online, and it's November 5th and 6th. And in Austin, I haven't been in Austin in a month of Sundays. It's a beautiful little town.
it's been a
University of Texas
while.
Aggies, right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, University of Texas. Go. Yeah.
Now, the interstate driving through Austin might be a little crowded in there, rush hour, but if you can get between the rush hours, you should be
We,
fine.
we might bring the trailer. During COVID, I
Mhm.
rehabbed a 1968 Shasta Classic trailer.
Ooh, ooh.
Yeah, it's like stepping back in time, and we might bring that and stay in that instead of a hotel and such like that. So,
There might be more adventure right there too.
and I'll let me just say this one last thing, and that is,
Please, please.
and that is, if you've got an idea, if you have a story, if you have an idea, get off your duff and write it down. Get a tape recorder and dictate it, especially if it's got to do with World War II. You
Absolutely.
know, these patriots are dying off, and sadly, their their um, their stories are dying with them. Now,
Unfortunately.
now there has been some really stellar um, preservation efforts. For example, the World War II History Museum in New Orleans.
Yes.
I just came back from there.
Oh,
Absolutely wonderful.
really?
The
Very
Na-
informative.
the Naval Air Museum here in Pensacola, absolutely top notch. They've got an Apollo capsule, an F-14, a P-51 Mustang, really cool stuff. And then the other two things that have really made an interest is the Veterans History Project, and then the Oral History Project through the Library of Congress, where you
Oh,
basically,
wow.
if you know of a World War II vet, get a
Hmm.
recorder, get a recorder, sit
Absolutely.
sit down, sit down with them, ask them what they remember, ask them,
Absolutely.
and then mail the tape to the Library of Congress, and they'll take care of the rest.
It's there forever for all the future generations to hear.
Amen.
So
Amen. And if you don't remember history, you're going to repeat it.
it is, yep.
I'll
That's the
tell you
old
this,
saying. Hmm.
tell you this other story. So my editor, Nevi, lives in Bucharest, Hungary. She
Mm.
called me up last week. We're going to go over. Um, she called me up last week. She said that her cousin was trying to get out of Ukraine to get to Poland, and
Oh, wow.
her and three of her friends are in this little Honda car. They're going down the road, and they come across a Russian tank. Up on top of the tank is the Russian commander going like this, telling them to stop. So they stop. They think, okay, maybe there's going to be some tanks going across in front of them. 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes pass. The girl in the back seat goes to sleep. The guy next to her starts reading on his phone. The Russian tank commander started up the tank, drove across the car, crushing all four of them to death.
Oh, no.
These folks are not your friends, man. They're not your friends. And
Wow.
whether, and I'm ex-military. There was no military reason for that. You're never going to win hearts and minds like that. She sent me
No.
she sent me a picture of an 80-year-old Ukrainian grandmother. She had a black cat in one hand and an M16 in the other, or a machine gun AK-47 in the other. You thought the Viet Cong were stubborn. These people will never give up.
She's holding on to her cat.
And an AK-47.
Wow.
Got to have your priorities. Hey,
Exactly. Priorities there.
Bob, I want to thank you so much. It's been so enjoyable. Thank you for the opportunity. I really, really appreciate it.
You're welcome, Tom. But before you go, let me just for my audience, I want to promote these books. There's some very interesting books here, ladies and gentlemen. The ones you see in the, I guess you say the middle to upper right, are already published. And you
That's
can
right.
get these on Tom McAuliffe's website, which I will bring up. The ones that's in the bottom left, stay tuned, because if you like the stories of the baseball player, an astronaut, and a politician, just you got to stay tuned because they will be coming out soon. Here is
Yeah,
his website again.
maybe you'll have me back, we'll talk about those.
Would love to have you back to kind of give us an update, and you probably have you probably have some more McAuliffes to write about when you come back.
No more after this. No more. I've had my fill. No more. I'm going to write some fiction.
Well, maybe we'll get another McAuliffe to start writing. Maybe it's time for the next generation. You think?
Hey, that's possible. And maybe we'll write about the Van Buren family too.
Hey, I don't know. That might put people to sleep. I don't know. That might help for insomnia, maybe. So,
No, your time before the mic as a DJ, that would make a fascinating story. People are always fascinated with that stuff. I know you were in country music for a long time and on the air. And I hope that personality radio comes back. The radio business.
I miss it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
The radio DJ was my friend. He kept me and she kept me company. And now it's all computerized.
It is. It's all digital.
Hardly have any stop sets or any interaction with the audience. It's real sad.
You just got to, get in and get out, basically. So, but
I did, and you did. We made it out.
We did.
Thank God.
Well, Tom, thank you for sharing your history of the McAuliffe family, your books. Looking forward to the ones that are due to come out. And I know there's going to be some really, really good things that we're going to be reading that you've already got and the ones that's coming out. So, again, thank you for being on the show, and we hope to hear from you soon.
My pleasure. God bless.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it all for tonight, this episode of the Van Buren Variety Show. As I said in the very beginning, if you haven't subscribed already to Van Buren Variety, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Subscribe, and that way you'll get alerts about upcoming guests, upcoming topics. And if you have any suggestions, if you have anybody that you think would benefit from being on the show, you'll see the email address at the end of my end credits, which I'll tell you now what it is. It's vbvarieties@gmail.com. That's V as in Victor, B, or should I say V as in Van, B as in Buren, varieties@gmail.com. So we'd love to hear from you, get some of your opinions, and maybe some suggestions from you. So I'll be back next week, again, with an interesting guest, another topic. And until then, have a great week, everybody. Good night.